Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. Now, if you just joined us, we've been talking about defunding the police, and we're asking, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there was 3 people who answered this question yesterday. Well, 4, because Nancy Pelosi got asked it, but she chose not to answer. Can we play Donald Trump when he was asked about defunding the police?
There won't be defunding. There won't be dismantling of our police. 99% of them are great, great people, and they've done jobs that are record-setting. So our crime statistics are at a level that they haven't been at.
And can we play Joe Biden when he was asked about defunding the police?
No, I don't support defunding the police. I support conditioning federal aid to police based on whether or not they meet certain basic standards of decency and honorableness and, in fact, are able to demonstrate they can protect the community and everybody in the community.
Can we play Senator Kamala Harris when she was asked about defunding the police?
We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street. Instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership, into access to capital for small businesses, access to health care regardless of how much money people have. That's how you achieve safe and healthy communities. And so we really do need to understand and reimagine what and how we can actually make and help make communities safe.
One of those people answered the question correctly, okay? And that person is not running for president, all right? But she needs to be on somebody's ticket because that's how you answer that question. Don't let Donald Trump or Joe Biden or anyone else make you think defunding the police is a bad thing. They're trying to Jedi mind trick us. They got us thinking that defunding the police is disbanding the police, abolishing the police. No, defunding the police is simply taking tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars out of police budgets and putting that money back into the hood, poor and disenfranchised communities, invest in schools, hospitals for better health care, housing, better food in the hood, invest in social services for mental health, job training programs, teach kids trades,
there's so many different
programs,
things.
rec centers.
Absolutely. So many different things that the community needs. But $6 billion a year, it's a lot of money. And I know you said you don't want to see, but I want to see where they spending this money before this. Where are they spending this money? Because there got to be some crooked ish going on. That's what I'm assuming. $6 billion.
Of course it is. Because them officers ain't rich. Them officers ain't balling. You know what I'm saying? And listen, when you talk about dismantling systemic racism, when you talk about destroying the mechanism of white supremacy, not funding the hood, not funding the black community is part of that. The whole point of systemic racism, I keep telling y'all, is to marginalize black people. That's why you shouldn't trust anyone who's against defunding the police because they are upholding systemic racism. Not to mention, how tone deaf can you be? If you Joe Biden, right? Remember the young lady who called up here earlier and said she's been in the streets protesting and, you know, the young people are calling for defunding of the police so they're all for investing in the communities. Why aren't you listening to the people? People hear Joe Biden saying the same thing as Donald Trump, and they like, F both of them. I'm staying home in November. Stop. Like, I don't care if you have to change the phrasing. Instead of saying defund the police, say divest and invest, divest from, you know, police budgets to invest in the people. Say that. Whatever makes you feel better. But defunding the police is not a bad thing, people. It's not disbanding the police. It's not abolishing the police.
Correct.
In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio did pledge for the first time to cut the police funding in the city. So he did say that we're going to shift funding to youth services, to social services, and that will happen literally in the course of the next 3 weeks. But he said he hasn't gone into detail yet because they're still negotiating and figuring out what makes sense.
Yeah. And
now, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, because Now, I read this yesterday, and it said that in 2021, they're going to cut the fiscal budget. But part of cutting the budget is not just cutting the police budget, it's cutting education and housing. That makes no sense to me. Cut the police budget and take that money and put it into education and housing.
Well, what we're realizing,
and he said they're going to shift that funding. So we'll see what happens because, like you said, they're in negotiation. So once they present what they're doing with that budget, then we'll be able to speak on it.
Yeah, what we're realizing is that, you know, they make money and move money when they need money to be moved. You know, you talk about $6 billion, like I want to know for the last couple of years, where were these billions of dollars going? And not only that, we see them just throw $1 trillion into the economy. So when the money's needed, they get it. So you don't think kids need books and kids need laptops and kids need better schooling and teachers need more money and rec centers that they've been closing down? They're saying that there's so many kids on the streets with nothing to do. Well, there's no rec centers around. There's nowhere for these kids to go. They can't play basketball. They can't play organized sports. They can't learn how to do things in tech or to learn how to invest or get their mental health right. So let's go to the phone lines.
They don't invest in the hood. They don't invest in Black and brown communities simply because they don't want to.
But we do have some police officers on the line.
800-585-1051. Hello, who's this?
How you doing? This is Officer Bodie of North Carolina.
Hey, Officer Bodie. Good morning.
Officer Bodie, what's happening, my brother?
How you doing? How y'all doing, Charlamagne Envy? How y'all doing, Angela Yee? How y'all doing?
Doing pretty good,
good.
brother.
How are you?
Black and highly favored. I'm glad you called, man. Talk to us.
Let's talk about defunding the police.
Too, man, and I'm heated.
Go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Okay, well, first of all, the George Floyd situation, that is not police officers. That is not what we're trained to do. That is none of our tactics. That is not what we're supposed to do. So that was just basically somebody that's on the outsider that's not a respectable officer. That is a gang member. That is a true gang member. That is not what we're supposed to do as an officer, first of all. Mm-hmm. Second of all, about defunding the police, I am for it because of me. I live in North Carolina, a small community, which, is poverty, basically, and I want to see my community upbring with more, churches built, more mental health facilities built, more job training. We just need more in my community as a whole. And we hold 80 officers, which is a $2 million budget we have, and I'm only making, around $18 an hour. So where's the rest of the money going if we got a $2 million budget?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying.
We with our vehicles, we still driving Crown Vics, and we may have a Dodge Charger or two. So where is our money going? It's not going in. It's not going in new equipment we can use on the job. So where is that going? Somebody please tell me. So,
and that's going on all across the country. It's not like police officers are making like these crazy amounts of money. It's not like all of y'all driving Camaros and Tahoes. Right. You got the Crown Vic.
The Crown Victoria that I do with 150,000 miles on it.
God damn, man. Hey, appreciate you.
All right, he has questions. He has questions too, Officer Bodie. He has
That's
questions.
That's what I'm talking about. Salute to Officer Brody, man. It's such a simple concept. Divest from police budgets to invest into people. We're not talking about abolishing police or disbanding police. We're talking about defunding. That's it. They make stupid money.
800-585-1051. Let's talk more. We're talking defunding police. We have a couple of officers on the line. Hello, who's this?
This is Officer Anonymous.
Hey, Officer Anonymous.
Hey, Officer Anonymous. I can see you.
We're talking defunding the police. What are your thoughts?
I don't think they should be defunded because one thing that we're fighting for, and I'm a black officer, so I'm down for the cause for sure, and I have a black son, so I totally get it. However, the funding, I'm in South Carolina, by the way. Our funding is to send our officers to the academy. That's not cheap. That's not free. Our funding is also for training. We're crying out for training. We train year round. Like, once we're done with one training, we're, off to the next training. Mm-hmm. So I don't think.
Where at in South Carolina you at?
I'm in Columbia.
Where at in South? Okay, let me look it up. What you don't want to say? You don't want to say what department though.
Well, you looking that up, but what about like
do you know the budget? Do you know the budget in Columbia?
I don't know the budget. No.
But when you look at markets like New York,
three different departments. There's 3 different departments downtown too.
When you look at $6 billion in New York, you got to say that's a lot of money to go to the police department. And we don't know where that money's going.
Absolutely right, but look at how many officers that New York department has as well.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to say that what I do agree with, it has to be a city-by-city basis, and I think what they need to do is be transparent about how much the police department is getting, where are those funds going, where are those funds needed, and then I think they should put together a council that will help make those decisions, which will include people from the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, New York has, I think, something out. I think 45,000 or 50,000 officers, I believe. But like you said, I just want to see where the money's going. Can we see where the money's going? It's not right that you just take $6 billion of taxpayers' money and we don't know where this money's going.
Yeah, we need transparency.
I can definitely agree with you on that, because if the community can see where the money's going, then the community will understand more as to why the department is getting that kind of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, if they teaching, proper training the police officers, I'm all for that. But it's not like Columbia police officers, aren't killing people too. Let's talk about 17-year-old Joshua Ruffin.
Let's go to another line.
His case didn't get a lot of attention either.
Hello, who's this?
Hi, this is Quincy.
Hey, Quincy, where you calling from?
I am calling from Long Island, but I'm a Brooklyn native. I'm an NYPD.
Okay.
You a police officer?
Okay. How long you been on the job?
16 years. Excuse me?
How long you been on the job?
Over 16 years.
Wow. Now talk to us about the funding of the police. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I grew up in Canarsie and Brownsville. So in growing up in those areas and working in those areas, the first thing I agree with Envy, I don't know if it's Envy or Charlamagne, but you had stated about defunding NYPD. We're underpaid.
Yes.
So that's a mistake. We're struggling. We're the most underpaid police department, and we work the hardest. Second,
and with a $6 billion budget.
Exactly. And we're not getting the money, so please don't mistake that. Now, what they need to do is dismantle the NYPD. They need to start from scratch.
Start all over.
They're working on old school policies and an old school way of thinking. They still got that mentality. It's a white boy world, period. We're going to call it what it is, and I deal with it as well. Yeah. But in reference to the youth, they have to be more hands-on. A mandated 1 PT or a police academy training twice a year is not going to cut it. They have to go into the community. You have to work with the kids. You have to work with the people. And I'm not saying just 3 or 4 officers per precinct. Okay? That's falling under community affairs or the NCO program. It is not going to cut it. I mean every officer. And I mean, even when they're in the academy, they need to go out. That's not nothing that's ever been implemented.
Right.
I agree with that 1,000%. I've always felt like that.
More. My mother was a police officer as well. They had those programs where you knew the officer. We remember those days on a first name basis.
Absolutely.
It's no longer like that. And you got to remember, now I have 2 black sons. They're 23 and 27. These are the police officers you're dealing with, and most of them are from Long Island. Okay, so you're working with kids.
Right. Let me ask you a question. When my dad was an officer, they made you stay in the boroughs for a couple of years, and they even gave you I think a discount on your pension on taxes and things like that. Do they still have that now, where you have to stay in the boroughs to say you live in Long Island?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, that's totally old school. That's when my mother came on as well. And if you got to remember, there's a lot of people in the city that are not taking the exam. I spoke to a kid one day a few years ago at dinner. He was a waiter. I convinced him. I was like, take the test. You're a young black kid. We need more people that look like us. Seen him a few years. He's in a plainclothes program. He was like, it was because of you. And it actually made me feel real good, despite my personal belief with the department.
And I also tell people that
make an impact.
A lot of officers don't make a lot of money, so they rely on overtime and take a lot of overtime to compensate for the money that's needed. So that's why a lot of officers do so much overtime, because they're not getting paid that much, so they need that overtime to make sure they can take care of their family.
We're not eating at all. Yeah, sure.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with everything that you're saying, especially about having people from the community as police officers. But the problem I have is that the reason I believe in defunding the police so strongly is because more police officers on the street won't reduce crime. More opportunity in these communities will. When you start investing into the schools and the hospitals and job training programs and invest in social services for mental health, and you invest in trades, when you provide these people in the hood with more opportunities, crime is automatically going to go down. So it makes everybody's life easier, police and citizens of the community.
Yes, but that's an overall problem for the city. We're in a deficit right now. So, of course, those programs, but I don't mind. Take the money if you defunded certain things from us and you allocate it, because that will help our problem. The majority of our problems are dealing with people with mental health. That's the bulk of the day.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you so much for calling, and be safe out there, please. Was there a moral to the story?
The moral of the story is don't let Donald Trump or anyone else make you think defunding the police is a bad thing. Okay, defunding the police is literally just taking money from the police department and investing it back into the schools, hospitals, better food in the hood, social services for mental health. You heard what the young lady just said just now. Majority of their day is officers dealing with people with mental health issues. Job training programs, teach kids trades, bring back after school programs, rec centers. You have to make an investment into your community. And it's not going in these police officers' pockets anyway, so what's the problem? Who's getting this money? $6 billion for the NYPD? Come on, man.
Clearly you can see what's been happening isn't working. And that's why these protests are happening. And that's why there's police brutality at protests against police brutality.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
The whole point of systemic racism is to marginalize black people. That's why people are against the funding of the police, because how dare they take money and actually fund the hood with it. You can't fund you, n***s. I didn't mean to say the N-word. Can't fund you, black folks. I'm just speaking like how the white man would speak when they talking about y'all.
Okay.
Talking about us.
All right. Now, we got rumors on the way, Yee?
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Black LGBTQ rights. And Billy Porter is speaking up for the Black LGBTQ community and calling out Black Lives Matter movement for not being more inclusive of them.
All right, we'll get into that next. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.